Hello and welcome to Press Play, the show that helps you decide if a game is press play worthy or you should eject it and move on. I'm your host Brian Clevenger, so let's get to it. This week on Press Play, we're surviving the strange and the brutal. We dive into the eerie countryside of Atomfall, then head straight into the radioactive heart of STALKER 2. Plus our top survival picks from Minecraft to Subnautica, what's up with the Switch 2, and Netflix future plans. So grab your controller, settle in, and let's press play. What if the world ended quietly? No explosions, no sirens, just fog, fear, and a government that stopped answering questions. Atomfall is a survival mystery set in 1950s Britain, where radiation isn't the only thing creeping through the countryside. It's slow, unsettling, and unlike anything you've ever played this year. The grass sways in the wind, but everything else is still. Abandoned cottages with lace curtains that haven't moved in years. A toppled teacup sits on the windowsill. Outside, the air hums, thick with radiation and something harder to name. This is Atomfall, where the apocalypse came quietly and no one dares ask why. Atomfall is the next narrative survival game from Rebellion, the folks behind Sniper Elite and Zombie Army, but this time they've traded bullet cams and undead Nazis for something far more subtle and far more unsettling. Set in a fictionalized version of royal 1950s Britain, Atomfall reimagines the aftermath of a real-life nuclear disaster, one that's been scrubbed from the history books. It blends survival mechanics with environmental storytelling, placing you in the shoes of an ordinary person trying to survive in an extraordinary situation. It's part walking sim, part survival light, and part psychological thriller wrapped in Cold War paranoia and old world folklore. Gameplay in Atomfall is slow and deliberate, but not dull. There's no XP bar, no fast travel, no flashy combat system. This is survival as discomfort. You're hungry, you're tired, and your map doesn't always match what's in front of you. You'll start with nothing, a basic map, maybe a can of beans, a vague direction from strangers who doesn't meet your eyes. Supplies are limited. You'll scavenge houses, check drawers, and occasionally find a rusted crowbar, or a packet of painkillers. There is a weight system, when managing your inventory becomes less about hoarding and more about choosing what you're willing to leave behind. Combat isn't the point, but it does exist. Some encounters can be avoided with stealth or conversation, others, especially in more militarized zones, turn violent. Weapons fill makeshift pipes, pistols, and bolt-action rifles. Ammo is scarce, and your best defense is often a good pair of legs and an exit plan. What's unique is how the game encourages exploration without ever feeling safe. There are no glowing markers or glowing loot trails. You explore because you're curious, and the game rewards with quite tension. You might find a note tucked in a drawer that unravels a character's entire backstory, or stumble across a house frozen in time, its residents long gone. Or not. If there's one thing Atomfall nails, it's atmosphere. The zone here isn't a bombed out war zone, it's a haunted countryside, one that feels familiar but off. You'll walk past sheeps that don't blink, fences covered in warning signs, and towns where people still go to the pub, but they don't talk about what's happening beyond the hedgerow. The narrative unfolds in fragments, diaries, overheard conversations, strange broadcasts on an old radio. You'll piece together what happened, but more importantly, you'll uncover how people respond to it. There are cults that believe the nuclear blast was a divine sign, military checkpoints manned by soldiers who don't answer questions, families who stayed in their homes long after they were told to evacuate. The game touches on themes of control, misinformation, memory, and belief. There's an edge of British folk humor to it, like Children of the Stones meets Chernobyl. The tone never goes full supernatural, but it never lets you feel safe either. And the setting is gorgeous and eerie. Rolling hills, fog-choked forests, stone churches, and country roads that disappear into the mist. It's Britain through a broken lens, and it's one of the most distinctive settings I've seen in a survival game in years. Visually, Atomfall is striking, not because it's technicality mind-blowing, but because it's so focused. The art direction leans into desaturated greens and browns, giving everything a vintage, almost photo bleach look. It captures that 1950s British charm, then slowly corrupts it. Environments are handcrafted and dense with details, from propaganda posters peeling off crumbling walls to fields dotted with mutated wildlife. Lighting is key here. Dusk and dawn scenes are especially beautiful, casting long shadows across ruined farms and foggy valleys. Performance-wise, Atomfall runs impressively well. The frame rate stays consistent, with smooth transitions between areas that help maintain immersion, even during more demanding moments like exploring dense forests or navigating ruined interiors. Load times are minimal, and the game does a great job of keeping you moving without frequent interruptions. That said, there is one recurring hiccup: brief stuttering during autosave moments. It's not a deal breaker by any means, it's just noticeable, especially when you're creeping through tense areas and the game suddenly lurches for a second. Hopefully that is something Rebellion can iron out in future patches. Atomfall is not a big action or a big spectacle, it's about quiet unease. It's a game that makes you pause, not because you're planning your next headshot, but because you're not sure what that thing is moving in the fog. It's survival, not as a power fantasy, but as a slow unraveling. It asks you to think, to explore, and to question everything you're told. And in an era of games filled with endless icons and over-explained quests, that feels like a breath of fresh, irradiated air. If you're a fan of Firewatch, Stalker, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, or an Amnesia the Bunker, this game belongs on your radar. I'm giving this an 8 out of 10 due to that it's kind of complicated to know where to go next and get lost. You'll eventually find it, but with no fast travel and can be a long walk back. So if you love survival games like Fallout, I would say press play. And speaking of Stalker, welcome back to the zone, where bullets are rare, silence is deadly, and only thing more dangerous than radiation is curiosity. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl isn't just a sequel, it's a survival gauntlet through one of the most haunting worlds in gaming. And trust me, the zone remembers everything. Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl is the long-awaited sequel to one of gaming's most influential survival shooters. Developed by GSC Game World and now available on PC and Xbox Series X and S, this entry builds on the cult legacy of the original trilogy while updating it for a new generation. Part open-world survival sim, part horror experience, and part immersive shooter, Stalker 2 drops you back into the irradiated heart of the Chernobyl exclusion zone, a place teeming with secrets, mutants, and things that can't be explained, let alone survived. Let's talk about survival, because in Stalker 2, it's not optional, it's a mindset. From the moment you step into the zone, you're up against more than enemies, you're battling hunger, radiation, exhaustion, weather, and the crushing weight of isolation. Gameplay is slow and deliberate. You're not sprinting from objectives to objective, you're scavenging, checking every corner, listening for footsteps that might not be human. The gunplay is precise but brutal. Every shot counts. Weapon degrade over time, and maintaining your gear is just as important as using it. Inventory management is key, and hoarding can kill you. Carrying too much and your stamina tanks. Use up all your meds too early and one scratch could end your run. Every skirmish leaves a mark, and the game doesn't just expect you to live with the consequences, it forces you to. But this isn't a game of non-stop firefights. Stealth is often the smarter move. Sneak around enemy patrols, avoiding anomalies, and don't go into the dark tunnel unless you really have to. The heart of Stalker 2 is its world. The zone itself is more than just a backdrop, it is the antagonist. Mutated wildlife, abandoned Soviet labs, haunted villages swallowed by overgrowth, every location tells a story even before the first line of dialogue kicks in. The story follows a new protagonist known as Skiff, a stalker searching for answers in a place that rarely gives them. And while the main narrative is there, what really pulls you in are the discoveries. The taped recordings left behind, the old journals, the strange whispers you heard at night. Anomalies return from the original games, those deadly, supernatural phenomena that distort time, space, and physics. Some hover like static clouds, others pull your body apart molecule by molecule. If you step too close, you'll need to toss bolts to detect them and find rare detectors to safely navigate their invisible zones. And then there are the emissions. These aren't just weather changes, they're apocalyptic storms that force you into shelter or die trying. They are beautifully rendered and absolutely terrifying. Visually, Stalker 2 is stunning. The zone has never looked this good or this grim. Dynamic lighting, fog, and detailed textures make every moment feel grounded. It's gritty, but never ugly. On the technical side, performance is solid, though not without a few rough edges. There are occasional bugs, mostly AI related or environmental hiccups, but nothing game breaking so far, and considering the size and complexity of the world, that's impressive. The sound design deserves special mention. The distant echo of gunfire, the whines of anomalies, the sudden silence before something bad happens, it all wraps you in dread. Stalker 2 is not fast, it's not forgiving, and it's definitely not here to hold your hand, but that's what makes it special. If you've got the patience to dig into the system, the stomach for some bleak storytelling, and the curiosity to follow every strange signal on your PDA, you'll find one of the most immersive, rewarding survival games of the year. It's not about winning, it's about enduring. And if that sounds like your kind of challenge, then welcome to the zone. Stalker 2 doesn't just challenge your aim, it's challenging your nerves, your instincts, and your patience. It's rough around the edges, but the atmosphere, survival mechanics, and world building are top tier. It's a game that doesn't care if you're comfortable because the zone never is, and that's exactly what makes it compelling. I give this game an 8 out of 10. Chilling, immersive, and unapologetically brutal. The game is very hardcore when it comes to combat and traversal, with anomalies everywhere you turn, so watch your step, could be your last. So, should you press play? If you are into survival, hardcore wastelands, then absolutely. Survival games aren't just about staying alive, they're about managing pressure. Hunger, weather, creature, chaos, each game puts you in a different kind of danger. So let's break down how survival actually works in these worlds. Minecraft. In Minecraft, survival starts simple. Gather, craft, build. You punch trees by day and fend off skeletons and creepers by night. Hunger keeps you moving, fall damage keeps you humble, and the environment itself, from lava flow to deep caves, is always ready to punish a bad decision. It's Survival 101, but in block form. Raft. In Raft, the world is water, and your platform is your lifeline. You'll need to collect debris, purify water, cook food, and expand your floating base, all while managing thirst and hunger. And of course, there's always that shark. Miss a beat, and you're swimming with it. Subnautica. Subnautica drops you to an alien ocean, and your biggest threat is isolation. You'll manage oxygen levels, temperature, hunger, and hydration while crafting tools, building underground bases, and slowly unlocking the planet's secrets. Resources are scarce, danger is everywhere, and one wrong dive can end it all. No Man's Sky. In No Man's Sky, survival takes a cosmic twist. Each planet has its own hazards. Radiation, toxic storm, extreme temperatures, and your suit's life support systems are constantly ticking down. You'll gather elements to stay alive, upgrade your gear, and learn to survive in a universe that doesn't care if you make it. RimWorld. RimWorld is about group survival, with complexity turned up to 11. You're managing colonists who eat, sleep, bleed, go mad, and develop relationships, sometimes with your animals. Food shortages, infections, raids, mental breaks. It's not just survival, it's damage control, and every choice becomes part of a story you don't even know you're writing. Whether you're fending off creepers, diving into alien ocean, or calming down on colonists, you just punched your chef. Survival games challenge your instincts and sometimes your sanity, but when everything finally checks, that's when the magic happens. It's time for Game News, where we break down the biggest stories shaking up the industry, one headline at a time. For new releases and major updates to surprise announcements and studio drama. If it's happening in games, it's happening here. Let's dive in. Nintendo has officially announced the Switch 2, launching June 5th with several major upgrades. The new system features a 7.9-inch 1080 display, 4K support when docked, and a revamped Joy-Con controller with a C button that activates game chat, an integrated voice and screen sharing feature requiring a Nintendo Switch Online subscription. The Switch 2 will retail at $449.99 with a launch bundle including Mario Kart World priced at $499.99. That's a notable increase from the original Switch $299 launch. Nintendo says US pre-orders expected April 9th are delayed due to tariffs and market conditions. Critics say tariffs may be to blame. Industry analyst Juice Van Duren called the price hike a Trump tax. Consoles are manufactured in China. Washington Post reporter Gene Park noted Mario Kart World is priced at $80. Nintendo's most expensive title to date, amid a wider industry trend towards $100 games. Nintendo revealed several exclusives, including Donkey Kong Bonanza, Kirby Air Riders, and a new Project 007. Third-party reveals include Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment and the Duskblood from Software. The Switch 2 is backwards compatible but requires a microSD Express card. A transfer feature will allow data migration from the original Switch. Nintendo also announced select GameCube games will be available to Switch Online subscribers. As major players like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo prepare their next generation of gaming hardware, Netflix's president of games, Elaine Taskin, is envisioning a future where consoles may no longer be central to the gaming experience. Speaking with game businesses following a Netflix presentation in San Francisco, Taskin questioned whether younger gamers are interested in what traditional consoles offer. Look at the younger generation. Are 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds dreaming of owning a PlayStation 6? I'm not sure, Taskin said. They want to interact with a digital screen, whether you are even in a car. Taskin emphasized that Netflix gaming strategy is focused on platform-agnostic access and low-friction experiences. In contrast to the Move rigid ecosystem and traditional consoles, he noted that factors like expensive hardware, the need for multiple controllers, and long download times can be barriers for families and casual gamers. Even if subscription can be friction, Taskin added, we tested removing it for Squid Games Unleashed, and we may do more tests like that. While Taskin admitted to having a soft spot for consoles, calling out the Nintendo Wii as a personal favorite, his career at EA, Ubisoft, and Epic Games have shifted now towards mobile-first, flexible gaming experiences. For Netflix, that means offering games like Stranger Things 3, the game, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, the definitive edition, all accessible directly through smartphones. Netflix is also targeting party games and family-friendly experiences, aiming to become a hub for casual gamers and younger audiences. The company saw the gaming engagement triple in 2023, despite reports in 2021 that fewer than 1% of subscribers were playing Netflix games. Still, it hasn't all been growth. In late 2024, Netflix shut down its internal AAA game studio, once led by developers from Overwatch, Halo, and God of War. More recently, layoffs hit Oxenfree developers, Night School Studio, which Netflix acquired in 2021. As Netflix charts a future with fewer barriers and more accessibility, traditional gaming giants are still moving forward. Sony and Microsoft continue to develop the next iteration of the PlayStation and Xbox, and Nintendo's release later on this year. One of the biggest conversations coming out of the recent Switch 2 Direct isn't about the games, it's about the prices. Mario Kart World is launching with a suggested price of $80 in the US. Even Donkey Kong Bonanza, which comes at a bit lower, is listed at $69.99 in the US. Digital versions may shave a few bucks off, but it's still a tough pill to swallow for fans used to Nintendo's more conservative pricing. But remember, those are just suggested prices. Retailers can set their own, and some Europe already are. As flagged by John Cartwright over at Blue Sky, several EU listings for Switch 2 titles are already showing up at around £60, about $65 USD, which is a solid £20 under Nintendo's recommendation. French retailer CD Discount, for example, has Donkey Kong Bonanza listed at £59.90, and regional Amazon listings for Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions are showing similar prices. So far, UK stores are starting adjusting, and storefronts in Spain and Italy are sticking with the full MSRP, but with pre-orders just starting to trickle out, there's still time for that to change. Meanwhile, during the Treehouse presentation, the live chat was absolutely flooded with drop the price chants. As Nintendo showed off gameplay, the sticker shock is real, but these early discounts suggest that relief might be on the way. This week we're taking a look at a game that's been given a second life on modern hardware, and for a lot of players it might actually be their first time seeing what the hype was all about. Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition brings one of the Wii U's most ambitious RPGs to Nintendo Switch. It's a massive open-world sci-fi adventure with deep systems, real-time combat, and yes, giant customizable mechs. With updated visuals and smoother experience and quality of life upgrades, the Definitive Edition gives the cult classic a chance to shine all over again. Whether you're returning to Mira on exploring it for the first time, there's a lot to unpack, so let's jump in. Developed by Monolith Soft, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition is the long-awaited return of a cult classic. Originally released on the Wii U back in December 2015, the game has been remastered for the Nintendo Switch, launched on March 20th, with updated visuals and gameplay improvement. Set on the alien planet Mira, Xenoblade X drops players into a massive open world spread across 5 distinct continents, each with its own biome, weather patterns, and massive creature roaming the land. As you explore, you'll activate data probes, fight monsters, and uncover the planet's many secrets. Eventually, you'll unlock scales, giant transformable mechs that take traversal to the next level. Once you're in a scale, the world opens up even more, giving you access to the areas that were previously out of reach and turning exploration into one of the game's biggest joys. Combat is real-time with MMO-style cooldowns and a wide array of skills and class options. It can feel a little overwhelming at first, there's a lot being thrown at you, but the on-screen controls help smooth the learning curve. You can freely swap between ranged and melee attacks, and your skills range from damage-dealing moves to healing, aggro control, and buffs. As you level up, you can upgrade and customize your abilities and your squad, switching out teammates with other Blade agents that complement different playstyles. The story kicks off in the year 2054 when Earth is destroyed and humanity escapes aboard massive interstellar arcs. You play as a survivor from the White Whale, a colony ship that crash-landed on Mira after a surprise attack. Your character is rescued by Elma, a key member of the Blade organization, and brought to New Los Angeles, humanity's new home. Early on, you meet Lynn, a 13-year-old engineering prodigy, and Doug, a seasoned Skell pilot. Lynn becomes your guide, and you tour in LA's 4 districts: industrial, commercial, residential, and administrative. Soon after, you're tasked with locating missing Blade members. That search leads you to your first encounter with the Tyrant, a massive elite creature that's far more powerful than anything else around. These tyrants are mini-bosses scattered throughout the world, and they offer some of the game's most challenging and rewarding fights. After the mission, you meet Commander Jack Van Ham, who asks you to choose one of 8 divisions. Each one offers unique gameplay bonuses. For example, I chose the Pathfinder division, which focuses on expanding Frontier Nav, a strategic system where you plant data probes across Mira. These probes generate income, resource, and allows for fast travel, adding a light sim management layer to the exploration. Visually, Xenoblade X holds up surprisingly well for a game that originated on the Wii U. The Definitive Edition features cleaned up textures, sharper UI, improved lighting, and a smoother frame rate. Comparing it to the original version, it's clear how much polish has gone into this remaster. The interface is less cluttered, and you have the option to toggle HUD elements for a cleaner experience. The soundtrack, composed by Hiroyuki Sawano, is bold and unforgettable. Known for his work on Attack on Titans, Kill la Kill, Seven Deadly Sins, and most recently Solo Leveling, Sawano brings his signature style, a mix of orchestral, EDM, and even vocal-heavy tracks, to give Xenoblade X a completely distinct sound. It's energetic, dramatic, and depending on your taste, either amazing or a bit much, but it never feels boring. Now I'll admit I didn't play the original on the Wii U, but after watching footage and doing my research, it's clear that this Definitive Edition is a major upgrade. It feels more modern, more accessible, and much easier to dive into in 2025. That said, this game is still massive. The main story alone clocks in at around 68 hours, and after about 5 hours of playtime so far, I'm already impressed. To scale, the system, the vibe, it's all clicking, but I can tell I've only scratched the surface. With the original launching back in 2015 and this re-release landing in 2025, Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition stands the test of time. I'm giving it a solid 8 out of 10. It's a fantastic game, huge, ambitious, and visually impressive, but it's definitely not the most casual-friendly RPG out there. There were moments where I had to learn things the hard way, like upgrading my gear and weapons. It's not always explained clearly, and that trial and error can be a bit much if you're looking to chill. But if you're up for a challenge, if you want to explore the world that feels truly alien and take down monsters in a customizable mech, so, should you press play? Absolutely. Indiana Jones is back, but not in theaters this time, but in his first new video game in over a decade. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is developed by Machine Games, the team behind Wolfenstein, The New Order, and brings an original story set in 1937, right between Raiders and the Lost Ark and The Last Crusade. It's a bold movie receiving such an iconic character, especially in a medium where nostalgia alone isn't enough. So, does it feel like indie, or is it just another adventure with a whip and a fedora? Let's dive in. The game is played mostly in first person with occasional shifts to third person for ladder climbing, swinging, and cinematic moments, and surprisingly, the first person perspective works. It puts you directly in Indy's shoes, solving puzzles, sneaking through Nazi camps, and yes, cracking the iconic whip. And the whip is more than just fan service. It's your go-to tool for traversal, puzzle solving, and combat. You'll use it to swing across gaps, pull levers, disarm enemies, and even stun them mid-fight. It's a versatile mechanic that feels right at home in both exploration and action moments. Combat overall is simple but not purposeful. You're not mowing down hordes of enemies. This isn't Wolfenstein. Instead, you've got a stamina system that forces you to pace your attacks, block strategically, and occasionally grab whatever nearby to improvise. Indy's not a soldier, he's a professor who keeps getting caught up in dangerous situations, and the gameplay reflects that. It's scrappy, reactive, and satisfying. Where the game really shines, though, is in its puzzles. Thanks hidden doors, ancient gears, cryptic riddles. The kind of stuff Indy's always getting tangled up in. They're not overly complex, but they strike a great balance. Enough challenge to make you feel clever, but not enough to slow down the pacing. And beyond the main story, there are optional puzzles tucked in side areas that reward exploration with upgrades and lore. The story opens up with a familiar face, the opening scene of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Yes, the actual tutorial is a playable version of Indy's most iconic escape. You solve your first puzzle, learn the mechanics, and then the boulder wins. Turns out it was all a dream, but a perfect way to set the tone. From there, the real plot kicks in. After waking up in his office, Indy stumbles into a break-in, a strange man speaking Latin, and a Vatican calling card. That's all I'll say to avoid spoilers, but trust me, it gets bigger from there. The game sends you across multiple countries, chasing clues, solving ancient mysteries, and trying to stay one step ahead of the enemy. Now let's talk about performance. I played on PC using Xbox Game Pass. Day 1 has some issues, frame drops, a bit of stuttering, but after a few patches, the game runs much more smoothly. Load times are fast, transitions are clean, and the UI is minimal, letting you stay more immersed in the action. Visually, the Great Circle delivers the cinematic feel. Lighting is dramatic, environments are rich with detail, and the temples and tombs feel like they're pulled straight from the silver screen. It's not quite pushing the limits graphically, but it nails the vibe, and that's what matters most in a game like this. Troy Baker steps into the role of Indy, and I'll admit, I was skeptical, but he does a great job. He doesn't try to mimic Harrison Ford, instead, he brings his own take while capturing the wit, charm, and world-weariness that defines the character. The supporting cast holds up well, and the banter between characters feel authentic. The soundtrack? Total highlight. It doesn't reuse John Williams' music directly, but it absolutely captures the feel. Sweeping strings, tense drum beats, adventurous energy. It's cinematic without being overbearing, and it pairs perfectly with the pacing of the game. So, final thoughts. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle doesn't try to invent the action-adventure genre. It doesn't need to. What it does do is deliver a tight, focused, well-paced Indiana Jones story. It balances puzzle, action, and exploration with confidence and respects the source material. If you're looking for an open-world sandbox or deep RPG mechanics, this isn't that. But if you feel like you're living the Indiana Jones movie, that's exactly what you've been waiting for. I'm giving Indiana Jones and the Great Circle a solid 9 out of 10. It's a perfect mix between action, charm, puzzles, and nostalgia, and when it pulls it off, with style. So, should you press play? Absolutely. That's gonna do it for this week's episode of Press Play. We went deep into Mirror, cracked a whip with Indy, chilled out on a few comfort games, and stacked up some solid deals in the bargain bin. New episodes drop every week, so keep that backlog in check. Don't forget to check out the latest bargains and upcoming releases. Thanks for tuning in, and until next week, keep playing, keep exploring, and as always, press play.